Welcome, everybody, to yet another Blue Jay Center podcast brought to you by the Sick Podcast Network. And I'm your host, James Price, along with my buddy Mo. And as much as we want to talk about the Blue Jays and how it's just so painful watching that team, we got to touch on something first. We heard earlier today about the sudden passing of Darren Detition. It caught a lot of people by surprise. But as of yesterday, we lost Canadian broadcasting legend Darren Detition to prostate cancer, which he's been fighting since 2021. And I think I can speak for all of us, Mo. I'm not going to speak for you. I'll let you say a little something afterwards if you want to. But as a sports fan growing up in Canada in the early 2000s, Darren Detition's voice is something that's embedded in my mind with coming home from school, checking out the highlight packs over the last night or so. And Dutch was a staple. His hilarious stories that he always told, and he was always in depth about them as well. Very creative with all of his highlight packs. And his family did release a statement. So he said he was surrounded by his closest loved ones. And they also mentioned his sharp wit remained until his final moments, classically delivering plenty of jokes, most of them pretty good, all of them inappropriate. I know I didn't know Dutch personally, but I think I can speak for all of us when I say rest in peace, Dutch. You'll be missed. So, Mo, anything you want to say before we head over to the Blue Jays?
Yeah, it's just definitely a sad day for Canadian sports fans in general. I remember as a kid vividly opening up TSN after the Jays games and just watching Dutch kind of go through the highlight packs, and that was definitely a high spot for me as a kid. It's definitely a dark day, and condolences to his family, and he'll definitely be missed.
Yeah, you can't even imagine what that family is going through right now. And we're going to try and transition to the Toronto Blue Jays. And that, God, they're a painful watch, Mo. I mean, that's the easy way to say it. And if you told me going to that Orioles series, I know, you got the split, the one rain out game, but you'd say a split against Baltimore, we're okay with that. But you watch those games. They were tough. What do you think, bud?
Yeah, man. I thought they're kind of hitting a stride on the first game of the series. Obviously, Vladdy's been to an extremely hot start, so that's encouraging. But the same story keeps on going again. The bats cannot get anything going with runners on base, nothing going with ducks on the pond. And that's just going to hurt you. I mean, the pitching has to be literally perfect. And we saw that this week with Kikuchi absolutely dealing yesterday and Romano blowing the save. But I do think that there is still time for the Jays to potentially make another stride. All it takes is a couple games, string together some wins. But man, it does look bleak with this offense not showing any life, and we're not seeing any consistency whatsoever with any part of the lineup, which is concerning. But we all know that pitching and defense does come a long way, and the Blue Jays definitely have a lot of that. So hopefully staying optimistic, but man, it's looking pretty bleak out there.
Oh, it really is. And you mentioned Kikuchi, and I had to bring him up because I think he went like 8 innings of 2-run ball in his previous start, and he went like 4 1/3 of 1-run ball, and he gets a loss and a no decision. It's just like he can only do so much.
Yeah.
It gave you as much length as possible. As much as he only went 4 1/3, he struck out 9. He was great. Other than a leadoff shot to Jordan Westberg, he was outstanding. And yet again, the Jays offense can't get it done. And people are going to go out Jordan Romano, and boy, we'll touch on him in a bit. But how do you go more than 2 for 13 with runners in scoring position in a 3-2 loss, getting walked off? Like that's just the story of it. I mean, it's been the story last year. Like let's be real, Mo. Last year the story was can't hit with guys on base. Today can't hit with guys on base, or this year can't hit with guys on base. It's the same story, and I think we're at the point where they're just not a good offensive team, and they are bottom 5 in baseball in runs scored per game, and it was 3.7 before last game where they only scored 2. So it's pretty bleak. And you mentioned how great the rotation has been and how Romano has to be perfect and everyone has to be perfect. And if you're a starting pitcher and you feel like you have to be perfect all the time, it's impossible.
Yeah.
Because you feel like every mistake is going to kill you. I think Chris Bassett one time, Mo, I think it was his last start at home. No, it was 2 starts ago at home. It was against KC.
Yeah.
And he allowed like a base hit up the middle and you went down 2-0 or something. He slammed his glove in the ground because he knows it's over.
Yeah.
And it's like, that can't happen, bud. That it just can't happen.
Yeah, and to that point, it's just we've seen the Blue Jays just demolish baseballs in Camden Yards over the
Yeah.
last years, and we've seen a lot of these guys, including Vladdy, Springer, and Bo, just tear the baseball off the cover to hitting friendly park like Camden Yards. And for some reason, albeit we've only been there once this season, we just can't seem to hit, and that's frustrating as a Blue Jays fans. Every day I contemplate if I want to watch the Blue Jays or if I want to do my homework that I should probably be doing anyways. And it just turns me into me watching baseball. The night goes on, it's 10 p.m., and the final score is 2-1. Jays lose. And it's just the moral of the story. And hopefully, I don't know, maybe another players' only meeting could do the trick. But right now, man, we need. I mean, Bo's been better. Vladdy's been better. So there's some bright spots in his Springer. He had a decent game last time around, got on base a couple times. But there's something needs to give with this lineup, man.
Yeah, you mentioned Bo Bichette, and since that second game of the Philly series where, we tried to think, oh, is this the time the team breaks up? No. But ever since then, Bo Bichette has been great. He has one game where he's been hitless, and actually he didn't even play in that game. It was game 2. No one played the damn game. But anyways, Bo had 3 hits in game 1 against Baltimore. He had 2 hits yesterday, and he's been significantly better, albeit what has been the story about Vladdy? Well, he's hot right now. He's OPS of over, and we talked about it in the last pod with Rob, OPS over 900 over his last 10 and all that stuff at the time. They're all singles. There's no extra, maybe a double from Vlad here and there, but other than that, you're not getting anything extra base pop. And in this sport, in this league now, you can't be a team that's stringing hits together. I mean, look, you can win some games that way, but you can't consistently win if that's the way you're going to play the game baseball. Look at the Orioles. They won 2 games. Sorry, they won 1 game and they lost the game by 1. All of their offense was on the home run. Every single one. They didn't get an RBI single, an RBI double, not a Blue Jay special, a bases loaded walk, or a scoring a wild pitch or a hit by pitch or something like that. No, they had home runs. And that team is a monster offensively, and you're seeing it firsthand. Now, the Jays did a pretty good job containing them. But Adley Rutschman torched them because of the home run. They're game changers. Yep. Where the Blue Jays need like 4 singles in a row to score a run. And it just can't happen. But yeah, Vladdy's been better recently. You mentioned Bo. Fine. Those guys need to be great for this team to even think about going anywhere. But singles, you're not going to go anywhere if that's what you're doing.
You know what, though? Like, sorry to cut you off, but I think there might be a philosophy. I don't know. The Jays brought in Matt Hack. Obviously, they have Don Mattingly as some assistant hitting specialist or whatever his job title is, offensive coordinator. Definitely not helping in any aspect or form this season.
Nope.
But there might be an approach where I saw a clip of CJ Abrams yesterday, where he was off to an amazing start to the season, and he's hitting like in the low 200s with striking out a ton in his last 30 games. And he was in the dugout, and there's a clip of him saying, "Man, I really need to start pulling the ball." And his coach was like, "No, you don't. You just hit a line drive, 110 miles an hour up the center field. Stop pulling the ball."
The whole hitting a bunch of line drives the other way. I mean, that's the Bo Bichette special, right? But somebody who, if that was told to him, said, no. I remember Josh Donaldson on MLB Network when he was with us. They're like, oh, yeah. I can't remember what the actual thing was. It was like, keep the ball on the ground or something like that. And he said, tell your coach, no. And it's like, okay, wow, legendary quote. And look at a guy like Danny Jansen, a guy who was trying to be that guy, line drive, opposite field, all that crap. And they're like, you know what? Screw it. Pull the ball, drill it. And he's one of our best hitters. So it's a painful watch.
Yeah, and I just want Vladdy, Bo, those guys who've had success in the minors to just pull the ball, do their thing. They're great hitters. They've had proven track records. It makes no sense for Bo Bichette to have a 550 OPS in the middle of May. He's too good of a hitter. And I'm sorry, if I'm the Jays hitting on the front office, I'm looking at the staff. I'm looking at the hitting coaches. I'm telling them, what are we feeding these players? What sort of analytics, what sort of nonsense are we telling these players to do? Because we've seen enough of a sample size that opposite field base hits, sure, it's nice, moves runners over, but the Jays have a problem scoring these runners. It's not about moving the runners. Let the guys go at the plate, choose their pitches. I saw a stat from Ben Nicholson-Smith today that the Jays are the worst team in the league when it comes to like swinging at first pitches.
Doesn't surprise me.
These guys just need to be more patient, look for their pitches, and just drive the ball. Like you said, Danny Jansen is really good at.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. And like you mentioned that stat about first pitches. Remember a couple years back, they were a team that hunted the first pitch and crushed it all the time. Shout out 2021. That was a good year for baseball, wasn't it, in the city? But yeah, the offense as a whole stinks. It's not. It's like the only thing they get on base a lot. Oh, great, they walk a ton. Let me go through these stats. They're 27th in runs scored. They're 25th in hits. So even base hits aren't happening. 21st in batting average, which is Rob's favorite stat. OBP, even that, they're 14th. It's still not great. Slugging percentage, 23rd. OPS, 23rd. Home runs, 26th. Stolen bases, 16th. Like they're not even in the top 10 in anything, albeit when you're this bad of an offense. No shit, you're not going to be that high in the I guess the rankings of all those offensive stats. It's just so painful. And I can't remember which week we talked about it, but Bo Bichette like hadn't had a hit to left field this season. Like I think he might have one at this point, but like that just can't happen. It just can't. What do you think?
I got nothing else to say, man. Like we've kind of hit on all the talking points. I will say though that this team definitely did have a strong, like hard schedule coming into play. Albeit we didn't see Boston yet, I don't think, if I'm not mistaken. And we do have the Rays starting tomorrow, but I do know that their schedule does soften up a little bit. So maybe that might help. But it just might be at the point of the season where we'll transition to this, where the Jays might have to be sellers. And we have to consider that the fact that it might not be a bad thing with a lot of good teams this year, surprising teams like Oakland, Kansas City, being really good baseball teams who might look to add some star talent. They have a lot of prospect pool. Speaking of a lot of teams that have good prospects, is the Baltimore Orioles for interest in Jordan Romano, right, James?
Yeah, and that's where we're going next, Mo. I mean, the Baltimore Orioles, who we just saw and just teed off on Jordan Romano to walk us off. We hear the interest before the series that the Baltimore Orioles they're keeping tabs, or whatever phrase was exactly said, about Jordan Romano. Yeah. There's a bunch of late inning relievers they were keeping an eye on, but that was one of the names, and I think they're just waiting to see as to which direction the Jays pick. Now, I know that's been a topic that we've talked about quite a bit, and didn't want to really talk about this because you don't want to be fifth in the American League East, 4 games under the 500 mark midway through May. Because in this division, you just can't have a bad start. We talked about it even to start the season. You needed to have a good start to the year. You didn't, and now you have to climb now, and it's tough, especially when they've been okay against the American League East though. I think they're exactly 500 against the Yankees. I think they're just 2-2 against the Rays because of the season opener. They're 1-1 right now against the Orioles, so I guess they're doing fine. But in the end, your record is 19-33. And you are a total of 9.5 back in the division already. And you are 4.5 back of a wild card spot. And you have to jump 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 separate teams just to get into a wild card spot. And we're in mid-May. Now, I know it's early, and I hate that phrase, though. For God's sakes, I hate that thing. But yeah, let's talk about Jordan Romano, because I'm at the point where I'm okay with having the conversation. I just am, because I mentioned it last time we talked, and I said, if you're going to sell. Don't beat around the bush. Don't wait. If you're going to pick a direction, pick a direction. But that also leads to another point, Mo. Do you want Ross Atkins making that deal? Because that's the interesting part of this, is if Jordan Romano is on the table, and if Jordan Romano is a possible candidate for the Baltimore Orioles, who have like literally the best farm system like to ever live. It's crazy. They're constantly having insanely good players come up from their minor league system. Do you want Ross to be the guy pulling the trigger? I think we kind of agree on things. I mean, I can read your mind, I think, a little bit with that. Also, do you see them trading Jordan Romano?
Yeah, so for your first point, I mean, Ross Atkins, I mean, looking back at it, he does have a decent track record for trades. Definitely has a better track record in the offseason than mid-season trades. I definitely think he hides around the bush during the mid-season, kind of wants to play it safe. Maybe that's orders from the ownership, maybe the president, who knows. But Honestly, man, I think that the Jays could get a lot from Jordan Romano, especially trading him within the division. And like you say, like just looking at the Baltimore Orioles prospect list just makes me salve. It's just amazing. There's a lot of guys who are actually MLB ready, which can help the team. There's actually a guy, forget his name off the top of my head, but he's a starter in AAA. He's putting up great numbers, and the Orioles have a backlog at the rotation. They don't have a lot of guys that they can move out, and the Jays could definitely use depth. Although Jordan Romano hasn't had the best season yet, he has struggled as of late, and we know the phrase that everybody loves, "nothing clean" from Jordan Romano. We saw that yesterday. Relievers are volatile. Like we see that you can get them for fairly cheap. We saw Jay Jackson, a name that we never heard about, come in and be solid for us last year.
Mhm.
Yimi Garcia looks like a completely different pitcher this year. Who one of my bold takes is he's probably more likely to get traded than Jordan Romano if the Jays continue to sell because he would demand a lot. I remember the 2018 offseason trade deadline. The Jays were sellers, obviously rebuilding, and they got a decent haul for the relievers back in the day. I remember it was Joe Smith, Swung Wan O, those type of guys. So the Jays could definitely dangle those guys and kind of like salvage their lost prospect pool. Who will we will be touching on the farm soon, but the Jays prospect list is a bit thin right now, and we're kind of in the purgatory of do we want to win? Do we want to save for the future? Obviously, Vladdy and Bo's time in Toronto seems to be coming to an unfortunate rather end very, very soon. I don't think they'll move them, but I just can't see. Honestly, in the end, I don't know if the Jays will be sellers. I just think they're going to be like 2015. They'll be right around the 4-3 games back, and Ross Atkins is like, "Hey man, it's my last season here. Most likely, I'm going to guns blaze it. Who cares? I'm not going to be here in the future. Who cares about the prospects?"
Yeah. I mean, I think that's exactly, where we're sitting. As much as, the possible Romano trade's a thing. But as long as Ross Atkins is the general manager, he's not trading Jordan Romano. He's not going to, because you're not going to ask that guy to make the trade to, God forbid, trade Vladdy, trade Bo, trade Romano, get rid of all the Jimmy Garcia, as you mentioned. He's not going to be the one making the moves. You know why? Because he's not going to see the prospects that come up. He's going to be gone by then. So he doesn't give a crap. So if you're making those moves, it's got to be somebody else making that move. And if that's the case, Ross has got to get fired. And I don't see that happening mid-season. So it's going to be a very intriguing trade deadline and leading up to it. If the Jays continue to spiral offensively and things continue to look hairy, you have no other way to look, right? If you're 10, 15 games under 500, you're not going to buy. You're just not going to do that. So I'm intrigued to see what happens. The easiest thing is John Schneider getting canned. So I think that's the first move to make. But it's just a matter of when. I've said the end of May, and clock's ticking on that. So, Mo, you mentioned prospects, and you mentioned that the Blue Jays prospect for the farm system, it's not great. It's not even top 20, I don't think, in baseball.
Yeah, it's not.
But there are some positives down there, and we got to try and touch on something positive because it's a miserable time right now for Blue Jay fans. So let's go on the farm. All right, so I tried to just load up with positives just because I'm like, I know this is going to be a miserable one. We had a sad thing to start. We got to talk about the miserable Blue Jays, possible trading away your Canadian closer. Like, it's been nothing positive. So let's start with some positive youngins. All right, let's start with the Blue Jays number 8 prospect and my favorite prospect in the org, Emmanuel Bonilla. I mean, I love the kid. I think he's going to be an absolute dog. He's only like 18 years old, crushing the Florida Coast League again. That's where Alec Manoah was getting beaten up by 18-year-olds last year, but he's hitting 355 with a 364 OBP. He doesn't have a walk this year, just out there swinging, and a 977 OPS. I mean, he has been a monster down there. He's an outfielder, a big kid. I think he's like 6'2" as well. I'm going to continue to talk about him because I really like the kid, and I think it's, again, in that window of if you're going to sell off, that's the type of pieces that you want to have around, these young, big outfielders with a lot of offensive potential, because that's what Ross and Mark haven't really, or Ross hasn't really done a whole lot of, getting those high ceiling guys, but getting Bonilla, it's a good one. It's a good one. Now, Leo Jimenez has been in the Jays organization for God knows how long. It feels like it's been forever for this kid. And he's in AAA. He had a slow start to the season, but boy, he's turning it on. Last 10 games, he's hitting 344, the 500 OBP. and he's on the season. He's hitting 260 with a 430 on base and an 843 OPS. So the 22-year-old infielder, again, not much pop. So again, it's the Ross Atkins sort of mold of, well, not very high upside, but he's that clean all-around player, good eye at the plate, good bat-to-ball skills, all that nonsense. So, but good-looking young player, and he's your number 6 prospect, and he's playing well in AAA. So you can't go wrong with that. Adam Macko. What's the nickname? It's like Adam Macko the Wacko. I don't know if that's like a legit nickname.
Yeah, something like that.
That's crazy. And obviously, one of the pieces you mentioned how Ross and Mark, or Ross, again, I see people keep lumping those guys together, and I understand they came over, but you got to realize if Ross gets canned, Mark's still here. He ain't going anywhere. He just made these massive renovations. He ain't just saying, all right, there's your renos, peace out. It ain't happening. So with that being the case, that awful trade, we all look back on Eric Swanson and Adam Macko for Teoscar Hernandez, and boy, wouldn't he be nice in this lineup right about now. Adam Macko, he's starting to find himself. He found himself really in the second half of last season. And to start this year, he has a 4.36 ERA, but at his best start of the year, in my opinion, one of his best starts. In his last outing, 5 innings, allowed 3 hits, 1 walk, and struck out 9 through 5. Obviously a lefty, right? Top 10 prospect, number 9. I love the looks of him. Josh Kasevich, again, the Leo Jimenez mold of all contact, baby. A 331 average and a 385 OBP, but a sub 800 OPS, 796. So, but he's crushing Double-A. I mean, he's getting hits galore. So that's a good sign for the Jays number 11 prospect. And my second favorite prospect in the org, Jace Borofen. The kid matched last year. He got drafted last season. So obviously they play like not many games to end their year, but he matched in the games he did play in. And so far this year, he's in 300 with a 482 on base, a 920 OPS. And just last night, he had his first home run of the season, where he was just tearing the ball last year. So 22 ranked prospect in the org, but a lefty bat, big dude, crushes baseballs. Him and Bonilla, young fellas, I don't know, positive signs. And the one downfall, and it's the one that Chase fans care about the most, it's Aurelvis Martinez. His last 10 games, he's hitting a .161 with a 300 on base. He's not great. Mo, you got anything to add about these guys? I know you had a chance to be in Buffalo, seeing guys play. And is there anybody that stood out to you while you were there other than Aaron Sanchez?
Yeah, I mean, we got the pleasure to watch some of these guys plays. You're talking about Leo Jimenez. Man, he's a gamer. Me, Robin Cole got to see him, and he made a fantastic diving stop at shortstop to save a couple runs. The trainer came over, thought he was injured for a bit, couldn't really see much, but he stayed in the game. Like you said, he has a great eye at the plate. Definitely not a lot of power, but he will put the bat to the ball, which is nice. Has good amount of speed. But like you said, the Jays, I was actually looking into this like earlier today. Remember Logan Warmoth? He was the 2017 first round pick.
Yeah.
The Jays have this issue with drafting these nice, kind of like low profile, high ceiling infielders that don't have a lot of power. Sure, they'll hit a little bit contact, not good like power. Like they need guys that can hit the ball out of the park, and that's kind of the way the game's going. And the Jays, like whole prospect pool is full of guys like Leo Jimenez.
Yeah.
Guys who just are contact first, have speed, and just really can't get extra base hits or kind of manufacture those runs the way, the sexy way, I guess you could say, which is what Jays fans want. Aurelvis Martinez, we got the chance to see him warming up pregame, and man, he's a unit. He's built, tall guy, great power, really soft-spoken, which is nice about him. I think I made a post with BJC today saying what the Jays should do with the 26th roster spot with Vogelback kind of just sitting there not doing much. And I think Aurelvis Martinez could come up and kind of fill in that Teoscar Hernandez lacking void that you said, kind of give the Jays some power. Obviously, hitting 10 home runs already in about 130 ABs in Buffalo is amazing. He has a crazy amount of power. He actually hit a home run the first time we're in Buffalo. Man, the whole stadium kind of just roared. It was just a powerful shot right there. This draft, though, that's coming up, I really like the Jays to take some chances on some kind of like high upside outfielders. I think I've seen enough of these infielders they try to draft. I think if you look at the top 100 prospect pool, you see a lot of the guys in the top hundreds are actually outfielders. We're kind of drafting the round 2 or 3. I think a guy like Owen Casey from actually Burlington, Ontario, where I'm from, who's like the 40th prospect, and he's actually tearing up AAA right now. And the Jays actually had him on their high list of guys that they want to draft, but they picked someone else, I think, 2 picks after him. So I would like this Jason grab some guys. And Owen Casey has amazing power. Like he hit 25 home runs last year in Double A. So I think the Jays need to go away from these infielders that have speed and have a good eye at the plate because it's not working.
Yeah, and I think they've started to do that like last year and whatnot, getting a guy like Jace Porafin, who I think is going to be a monster. Bonilla as well, big outfielder, six. I think he's like I said, I think he's 6'2". And obviously Arjun Namala, the first round pick, very high upside, lots of pop.
Yeah.
He already has like 3 home runs down in the minor in like what is he in Dunedin, I think it is.
Yeah,
Maybe
he's in
less than
Dunedin.
that. Yeah, so
Yeah.
he's got some pop too. So it looks like they have gone away from that a little bit. But yeah, I'd love to see that as well. And then the one name you mentioned, that kind of profile, Logan Warmouth type of guy. The one guy that jumped into my head when I thought about that was Jordan Groshans. I mean, remember when we talked to
Oh,
this
yeah.
guy up like crazy, right? He traded for Anthony Bass and Zach Pop. Like, no one talks about that anymore because he's never really turned into anything, as a lot of the Jays prospects have, because
Yeah.
those type of guys are not great in the big leagues. And we're starting to see it. That's why Vladdy
Austin
was
Martin, too.
Yeah, Austin Martin, exactly. Another great example. Yeah. So I'm with you. I like upside. I think we all like upside. They finally figured it out, but it's probably too late for Ross. Now, last thing before we wrap this thing up, Mo, let's talk about the upcoming set the Jays have against the Tampa Bay Rays at Rogers Center starting tomorrow night. Chris Bassett's going to get the ball for the Jays in game 1. And they obviously pushed him back. He was initially supposed to go in that Baltimore series, but they go Kikuchi instead, give Bassett that like extra day rest because there's no game tonight. And tomorrow, 7:07 first pitch against the Rays. Of course, the Rays are TBD. Like here's a bullpen day. It's Tampa Bay Rays. The Saturday afternoon game is Zach Eflin versus Kevin Gausman, and the finale is Manoah versus Aaron Savali. So, what I would say, what do you think the Jays need to do? But we all know they need to freaking hit a baseball. But who are you looking at in this? We can say the opener or the entire series to kind of break out.
Yeah, I think one guy I'm looking at really is Bo Bichette right now. I want to see him continue to kind of work off his stride, especially at home in front of the home crowd. That'll be nice. But kind of another guy that we saw is David Schneider. I think John should really pull the plug on Springer. Just put David Schneider at the leadoff spot, for God's sake. Just have him up there. We saw him mash the ball, the leadoff spot, extra base hits galore. Great eye. Those are 2 guys I'm looking at this series. Also, Alek Manoah. Let's see what he can do after a really strong start last Sunday. Was unlucky with the last home run, but let's see if he can kind of replicate a nice solid outing because, man, that'd be really, really huge for the Jays.
Yeah, I can't blame Manoah because it's Carlos Santana, man. He's gonna hit a home run. I think he hit one every game of that series. But yeah, that's the guy I'm looking at, Alek Manoah, because I'm curious. Can we get it in back-to-back starts? Can you do one against one of the really good offenses in the Minnesota Twins? Can you do a really good job against the Tampa Bay Rays? Like that's very important. 2 teams that are, the Twins are obviously one of the better teams in the Central, and the Rays are the freaking Rays. They're always frisky. They're always ready to go. And look, the one guy I look at and I will always look at is got to be George Springer. And you mentioned moving him out of the leadoff hole, and it needs to happen. But he's got to be a positive contributor at some point here. I'm at the point where it can't get worse, but it kind of is for George. He's been awful. You mentioned David Schneider being in the leadoff hole. I think he deserves a little bit of a run with it. Like, who else is your option? It's George Springer, and that's it. And speaking of George, I had to rip up his stats here because a 572 OPS, he's hitting the shade over 200, and OBP. Again, what do you talk about as your leadoff guy? A dude that gets on base a ton. He's got a 277 OBP. It's not good enough. He shouldn't be there. I don't care about the money. It should be about prioritizing winning and what makes this team tick. And if David Schneider in the leadoff hole can turn something, do it. And after an off day, it's the perfect opportunity. Everyone's available, assuming no one's sick, like they were in game 1 of that Orioles series. But I don't know. I'm with you, Mo. You got to see Springer out of that leadoff hole. I'm intrigued about Alek Manoah. Very interested to see what Kevin Gausman does. I think what was his last start was bad, wasn't it?
Yeah, the Twins really eat him up.
Yeah, that was the Twins one, which it always happens against the Twins. But yeah, Mo, I mean, there's not much else to say, man. This team is painful, beyond painful to watch. You even choose not to at times, and I don't blame you. Hey, if I had a choice of doing something else, and I know I'm going to enjoy that thoroughly, yeah, I choose that right now over watching the Blue Jays, and it's awful for me to think that way and awful for me to say that way, but I'm just being honest. Mo, appreciate you coming on as always, bud. And for everybody watching, listening, appreciate you. Hit that Follow by wherever you are. Do all that great stuff to show love to the page. The Sick What the hell am I talking about? The Sick Podcast, Blue Jay Center Edition. Appreciate you as always. Talk to you Sunday.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Blue Jay Center on YouTube, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.